I'd like to welcome you guys to this week's report. Good news, start things off. We got great weather across Southern California Bight all weekend. Shouldn't affect anybody's fishing plans regardless of where you're fishing or what size boat you have. A little bit of typical west wind in the afternoon in some areas, but overall not too bad. So let's go to the map. As you guys can see, I got a little new format here. I've been messing around with my editing stuff and I decided to go with something new. But starting off, let's head up to the Channel Islands. The sea bass bite has rebounded up there. It actually wasn't quite off as it sounded. It's just the guys were keeping a tight lip on it for a while there. But the limit's now 3 fish, and guys are taking advantage of that. A few of the sport boats had 3 fish limits already for their guys. All nice grade fish. They're biting flukes and bait. The 4-pack boats, like the bite sport fishing boats, they're all heading up there now to take advantage of that action. So that zone's got plenty of coverage this weekend. Along the coast up there, there's some good service activity going on as well. The Stardust out of Santa Barbara on Monday, I think, had a bunch of barracuda, caligos, and sand bass. Really good coastal fishing on migratory species, at least for the barracuda there, which is fantastic news. Hopefully that continues and those fish move into the inshore flats area, stuff like that, and they can have a good steady bite there this summer. Let's head down to San Clemente Island. The island didn't get a whole lot of coverage last week due to naval closures and weather, but the boats are fishing there again. The fish are biting. The Thunderbird was there on Tuesday, had over 20 yellows on the front side. Nice grade of fish. The boats fishing over there, have been seeing them pretty consistently over there. Bass guys are doing pretty well as well. My buddy James Little headed over there on Sunday or Monday and loaded up on good calicos on surface lures and things like that. He said they're one of the real big ones, but he said they made it up for it in quantity. Going into Catalina, kind of status quo over there. They're getting some yellows, bonita, bass, stuff like that. It's good fishing, but it's nothing out of the ordinary for what's been going on over there, so not really a lot new to talk about. Yeah, there's still some sea bass over there, but the guys that were fishing them seem to have bugged out for the better bite up north. Heading into the beach, we've got great fishing again in there. The Enterprise had 200 barracuda on a 3/4 trip on Monday, which is probably the best score I've heard in years. So a lot of activity out there on that. Guys getting them on jigs. The bass are still biting, but I think the guys are targeting more barracuda now and maybe have backed off on the bass a bit. I'm not sure, but the counts are down over the last few days. But they're still biting good in the mud for guys fishing them. The PV is still biting. Benny Florentino has been up there pretty much every day recently and getting good scores, nice calico bass on weedless swim baits, hard baits, crankbaits, things like that. I'm probably going to go up there on Wednesday afternoon. I'm making this on Tuesday. Going to fish there Wednesday afternoon. Not too windy. Hopefully catch a few calico bass. Down the beach at the, in San Diego, they're still having good bass fishing down there. Still getting a few yellows too, now and then. Not a lot on the beach there, but they're big ones. Down to the Coronado Islands, I went on a trip on Friday on the Mission Bell, and no one had been down there in a long time, so we went and looked around. We ended up finding quite a few spots of yellows down there that weren't super cooperative. I think the boat ended up with about 20 fish that were maybe 5 pounds. The biggest one might have been 15, a little bit bigger than that maybe, but it was definitely 2 different grades of fish, 5 6 pounders and the bigger ones. All the fish came on bait, and I think 1 or 2 might have come on a yo-yo jig. I threw the surface iron all day. I had 1 bite that stuck for a second and came off with a little 5 pounder, so I didn't really care. Things are moving around a lot. You pull up on a spot, you get a sonar mark, you throw some chum, they come up and splash around a little bit, you hook 1 or 2 and then they're gone. So a lot of barracuda down there too, and calicos biting everything, jigs. I probably had a dozen barracuda and half a dozen calicos while I was trying to catch yellows. I want to give a shout out to the crew on that Mission Bell. It's been a long time since I fished San Diego. Like I said, last time I went was on that Jig Chuckers charter, but this is just a standard charter. And Captain Steve and Deckhand Sean really worked their butts off all day getting us on fish. They never sat around. Really liked to hustle. We'd pull up, mark some fish, throw some chum, hook 1 or not. Once those fish were no longer around the boat, they were on to the next thing. And I mean, we looped those islands back and forth, looking at different conditions, different times of day. So hats off to those guys. A really great trip. And it's almost enough to make me want to go sport boat fishing again. Speaking of sport boats, the Bluefin Bight has kind of slowed down for the fleet. They're seeing a lot of fish, but they're not catching them. And a lot of these fish they're seeing are feeding on the surface, which is really good for us skiff guys. You know, it's bad for the sport boats, but it's good for us. And I know the 4 and 6 pack fleet are flying kites with flying fish and catching big giants on, you know, right outside the Coronados basically. But for private boaters, you know, this is a prime time to go out there and find your own fish. They're up high and dry all afternoon. Get out to a fishing zone late morning, high slack or low slack tide. See those fish come up, and the nice thing about them being up foaming around like that is they're really easy to get on with your own boat if you're smart about it and you're away from other boats. So as I've been talking about the whole time, you know, you want to stay away from the other boats that are out there. Some of them just impossible, but try to put yourself in an area that has as few boats as possible. So when you get in that area where you don't have a bunch of other boats around now, you can really slow down and actively fish. And the first step is to approach the fish and figure out what they're doing. So take, for example, you pull up, you get a foamer through your binoculars, and you see it with your naked eye, and you say, okay, hey, these fish are doing something. They're, you know, a quarter mile away. I'm going to go over there. I don't race right up to them. Just kind of get close to them, then slow down for a second, see what they're actually doing. Are they just feeding in a circular pattern? Are they feeding in a direction? Are they moving? What are they doing? That way you can kind of predict where you need to be when you get there. Because if the fish are going this way and you pull up to where they were, you're not going to be casting. Sorry, my camera cut out there. In situations where you pull up to a foamer that looks like it should bite, but I mean these fish are aggressively feeding you, don't get bit on the subwalk or whatever lure you have tied on it. You know, sometimes it pays to experiment a little bit with different size lure. Like this Yozuri Hydro Minnow 170, a little bit bigger bait, Lucky Craft 190. These types of things sometimes will draw strikes when they're not biting the smaller lure like a subwalk, or sometimes you have to downsize to a smaller bait like a Cold Sniper, or, you know, even a smaller hard bait or a smaller popper. So don't just beat your head against a wall. You know, if they're not biting, you hit a couple of foamers, they look the same, and they look like foamers that bit for you in the past, and they're not biting, try a different lure, try a different presentation. Maybe speed it up, slow it down, do something along those lines. I mean, if those fish are up feeding on the surface and they're aggressively foaming, there's been very few times where I haven't got them to bite something. So try a few different things, have, you know, 2 or 3 rods rigged up so you don't have to retie while you're out there, and give it a shot. Anyway, that's about it for this week, and I hope you have good luck if you're fishing, and we'll see you again next week. Thanks.